everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I am DeAnna Murphy with the Murphy Group and Carpenter Realtors, and I am here with one of my favorite people in the world, Lucas Murphy. Luke. He has joined me today to talk about...
I wanted to ask some questions from the perspective of a young individual, a Gen Z, a millennial. It's kind of up in the air. I asked some questions about the home buying process and things that young people should know before they buy a house.
Great. I've always wanted to do this, and you're the perfect person to do this video with. So, you did what to get me some questions?
I asked some of my friends. I just kind of sent out a vague question of like, what would you guys like to know? And I got some responses. I also have some questions of my own that I think people would like answered. So.
All right, hit me.
So, I think the first one should just be, how do I start the process of saving money for a house?
Well, that's a really good question. The important part there is saving money for a house. I will say in different states, I know your friends are from all over the United States, so this would be different potentially from state to state. So the best thing to do first is to get acquainted with what types of loans are out there. Believe it or not, there are loans out there that you can get into a home with zero down. So you may not need any money down, but it depends on which state you're at. So, but typically stating, you can get into a home for 3.5%. So even if you just start putting a little bit away, it will build up. And there's no better time to start. So even if it's $50 a month, put it aside, and that can help you go. It can go toward your inspections or your deposit, anything like that. So just even beginning to start to save that money is a good option.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's very good to know. So next question is kind of related to that. How do I choose a realtor, and when should I start looking into getting a realtor for buying a house?
Really good questions too. Of course, you would need to call me because I'm your mom.
Of course.
But typically, referral is a really good way to find a good agent in your area. So if you live in that area, ask your friends and family and make sure that it's somebody that has a really good reputation. You can also Google is your best friend. Zillow is your best friend to look for those reviews to find out how good that agent is. The other important thing you need to know is finding somebody who is a full-time agent with experience. There are some agents out there with not a lot of experience and or had just gotten their license, and you don't necessarily want to be put in a position of being somebody's trial person to get that ball rolling. So
yeah.
So Google getting reviews, asking for referrals. And then obviously, and your friends probably know that I can refer you to anybody across the United States because I have a network of agents that I work with through my coaching show that we have. And so we can definitely get you into somebody that has a really good review in your area.
Yeah. Awesome. So this is a question from a friend who has lived in both Illinois and Michigan. He knows that you are required to have a lawyer in Illinois. You're not required to have one in Michigan. What is the reasoning for having a lawyer, and should you have one when you buy a house?
That really depends on the state that you're at. I do have a lot of clients move here from Illinois, and I do know that they have a process that is very much different than our area. We are a title state, and so we do things a little bit differently here. The attorney is built in sort of the title process, meaning they're going to search that house and make sure that it doesn't have any liens on the property or judgments, things like that. So that is the way they're protected. But Illinois is a little bit different. And so that real estate agent that you connect with, if you are in Illinois, would need to be able to explain their process with you. Again, it's really, even in a title state like ours, one of the options is for them to be able to consult an attorney if they so choose. So a lot of times the real estate agent knows enough to get them through that process and describe their liabilities that they might have through that. So again, it would be that agent that you're working with in any state that you're at, because they all do differ.
Cool. So, sorry. Gen Zs and millennials, a lot of people are buying houses later, they're staying in apartments. A big trend that I've seen among friends is they don't want to buy a house. They want to buy land, they want to maybe stay in like a tiny house. Can you kind of go into the different steps that go into buying just land and building a house, or just owning land. And with one person who said that they wanted to just buy a tiny house, buy a plot of land, and move whenever he needed to.
That's a really popular thing right now,
Yeah.
the tiny houses. So the process would be, of course, if you already have the land, finding out from your county if you're allowed to put a tiny house on it or build. A lot of states have regulations on how large that land has to be in order to actually build a property. Or if it's really big, they may want to divide the properties and build 2 homes on it. So again, it's going to be up to your county and state to decide how that process will work for you. The difference though between building on a piece of land, and I know that you kind of gave me a couple of these questions, so I don't know if this ties into your next question or not, but when you are wanting to build a property on your land, you would need to go to a different type of financing. So that is just for new construction, meaning that a lot of your credit unions and your personal banks are going to be the ones who's going to fund that loan rather than just a typical mortgage company. So the financing looks a little bit different, and the down payment is a lot different. So if it's going to be a custom home, it's going to be probably a lot more expensive than a neighborhood home inside a subdivision that's already been developed, because you're starting from scratch when you are starting to build your own home from the ground up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So this kind of the same mindset, is that the same type of stuff applies for remodeling a house? That was another question we had, was remodeling a dilapidated house versus just building from the ground up.
That's also really popular, flipping a home if it's been foreclosed on. Real estate agents are really good at knowing what is going to be the most valuable part of a remodel, is going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. I can tell you kitchens and bathrooms are the biggest thing you can do. If you redo those, renovate those areas, you're going to get a better return on investment. If you are painting or just simply putting new carpet in, those are more of like a maintenance item. But going back to the whole flipping side or buying a home that needs to be redone, it is a really good opportunity. And again, there's special financing that you can get for that to actually include all of that work to be done. However, when you are doing that, they require specific contractors to do the work. So if you were wanting to do the work yourself, it'd be a little more difficult. You would have to actually get a better type of loan and purchase the house, and then personally finance all of those rehab items. But again, the real estate agent will definitely tell you where to put that money, and so you don't over improve for the neighborhood.
Yeah. So I think a good kind of question going from this is, or thing to take away, is that a realtor isn't just somebody who helps you find a house. It's somebody who helps you out with the finances and does a lot more.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes we're a therapist. Sometimes we remove snow. Sometimes we're a babysitter. We tend to wear a lot of hats through the process. But most importantly, the importance of getting a good real estate agent is somebody who cares about you, cares about your investment, and doesn't just want to get a closed deal. They really care about you. And so that's why it's really important to get a referral to a good agent, and not just randomly call somebody if you're driving by and look at a sign and then call that agent, because we don't know anything about that agent necessarily. So you had a lot of really good questions. I will just add one little thing for your friends if they wanted to start the process. Again, the first part of that process is connecting to a real estate agent. And then you would start an approval process, which is really just turning in your bank statements and tax returns and specific pay stubs to the lender that you're referred to from your real estate agent. And then that will begin that process. You'll get an approval letter, and then you can go shopping. A lot of people like to put the cart before the horse and start shopping first and then get everything else worked out afterwards, and that's not a great idea. So definitely get with a realtor, get your financing in order, and then start shopping, and that'll make your process a lot easier. Timeline, are you curious about the timeline from start to close?
Yeah, sure.
It's about 45 days here in Indiana. It can change from state to state, but from here, the time that you write a purchase agreement on a home to the date of closing is about 45 days, and it may be a little bit longer right now during the pandemic, and so we're seeing things last about 60 days or so. Prior to the COVID-19, we were able to close properties in about 25 to 30 days. which was really fast. So again, it would differ from state to state, but that's an average here in Indiana.
Awesome. So kind of a specific college student engineer kind of question. A lot of people see themselves moving around a whole lot, across the country. Should go into the decision for trying to decide between buying a house or renting an apartment. What should you consider for that?
So in Indiana, the seller pays commissions, and so that's something that you would need to think about if you were going to be purchasing the property. If you think you may be moving in a year or two, you're going to have to pay that agent commission to sell that property. And so that's going to eat up some of the equity that you've built up. So it really depends on how long you plan on staying put. If you think you're going to be there 5 years or 7 years, it definitely makes sense to purchase a home, because then you will have been able to recoup some of that equity to pay the realtor to sell the property and also put some money in your account for the next house that you purchase.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, I would say renting probably would make a good idea for a year or two until you know for sure. And I know a lot of your friends may not be moving to a local area that they've been raised. They may move to a different state. And sometimes it's a good idea to rent that first year so you get to know the area around the city that you're going to be living if you're not really familiar with it. And then you'll find out the really good neighborhoods, the up and coming neighborhoods, and things like that. So that's when it makes sense to rent.
Yeah. So say you do move to a new city and you stay there for a year, when would be the best time to start looking for a house?
If you've been there a year or so and then you decide you want to start buying, I would start about 3 months prior to the time that, and that's shopping actually, when you are about to get out of your apartment. Again, I hate to keep going back to the realtor knows, and it depends on the state, but because of the time that when you close on a property, typically your first mortgage payment is somewhere between 30 and 45 days after that. So we know how to work that timeline so that we can keep you from making 2 payments, one on the apartment and one on the house. And so consult the realtor about that. But typically about 3 months prior, you can start looking.
Yeah. Awesome. So, and my last question would be, how can my friends get a hold of you if they want to buy a house?
Of course. Well, you can give them my number and my name and my email address at 317-414-6890. And you can find us on the Murphy Group on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate, number one, you being a part of our video today and having you home and just getting to be involved in our team, our family team. So I appreciate all your good questions and I love them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.